TV3. We're live on 3FM 92.7, also live on TV3 Ghana on Facebook, DSTV channel 279, all across the world on 3news.com. We understand we're also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. This morning, the three burning key issues on the table. I have my guest joining me in studio. A number of people will be joining us on Zoom as we go on. Edward Bauer is a member of Parliament for the Bongo constituency. He is a member of the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament and a few other committees as well. But for today, the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament is what is needed on our conversation this morning. Honorable Edward Bauer, good morning, welcome.
Good morning, Alfred. How are you?
I'm well. It's been well. Also joining us, Martin Pibble is private legal practitioner. He is the convener of one of three individual bondholder groups, and then also the Kumi Preko Reloaded demonstration. Lawyer Martin Pibble, good morning, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Kansi. Good.
Also joining us is Joseph Didiok Penka, who's a former Deputy Attorney General, and he won, just to put it on record, his primaries for the Tempani constituency, one of the orphan constituencies of the NPP. So exactly a week ago, he was in an election mood, going around and hoping that the delegates will smile on him. And yes, they did, and he won. Congratulations to you.
Thanks, Alfred. And thanks to your viewers.
Indeed. That's why you were missing in action for all this while.
That is true.
Doing constituency work.
I agree.
How did it go for you? Let's start off with that very quick. Because you came into this contest with a number of people who were very well resourced. Well, 7 government officials, correct?
Yes.
A deputy CEO and a few others.
Yes. I actually was a straight fight, 2 of us. I contested a deputy CEO of the YEA. And you know that the YEA is in charge of the youth and all that. And that was a very tough one. Very, very, very tough. But I came out of it successfully. I'm very grateful to the delegates. I'm grateful to the constituents. I'm grateful to everyone for the confidence reposed in me to represent my party in the 2024 election. And what I can only say is that it was just by the grace of God and His blessing and mercy that I triumphed. And that's because it was really a very difficult one, looking at the circumstances that I would very much not like to recount.
Circumstances you wouldn't like to recount?
Yes.
But you want to share some of them with us?
That's why I said I wouldn't like to recount, and for obvious reasons, and because going forward, there's a need for a lot of things, building of bridges and etc. to be able to, for one to be able to do a smooth campaign. But I can tell you, it was one of the toughest elections I've ever had in my life.
One of the toughest elections
I've ever had in my life. That's on authority I can state. In fact, I told my wife after the elections that I've contested more than 20 elections in my life, and this is the toughest election I've ever gone into.
Wow.
But I emerged with a margin and difference of 63 votes.
Indeed.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That was how close the contest was.
Yes.
63 votes difference.
Yes, please.
I see. Now, but you've been in Parliament before. You lost. You're going back. I mean, your story is the reverse for Edward Bauer, who is in Parliament but lost the primaries. Correct?
Sure.
Yes.
Well,
So-
I don't. He's my very good brother and friend over the years. Very close, character and person I like so much. I don't think he lost because he served for 8 years, and I think that the delegates only told him that they wanted a different person else to continue. He didn't lose. That's my mind.
I see.
He may say he lost, but I think that he served well. I was with him in the 7th Parliament. He distinguished himself and all that. I think he shouldn't be too worried. He got 8 years to serve the people of Bongo. And that is not a small thing. It's a privilege and an opportunity he has to thank the people for. I think they just decided that they wanted somebody else to continue from where he left off. He hasn't lost anything. And I would say that getting 8 years to serve your people is a privilege you have to be grateful to God for. And I think that my good brother and friend shouldn't be too worried. He's an asset to his party. The future is bigger than what is happening today. And I think that at the right time, if there's a call on him to once again serve in another capacity, he will answer to that call.
The motivational message is good for the morning. But, you know, I don't think that Edward Bauer's parliamentary ambitions ends at this point, does it not? You're going to come back. You contest again, 2028.
Good morning. I think that usually I take a day at a time. And then you don't have control over your own life.
Absolutely.
You do not know exactly what happens tomorrow. Yes, as Penka was saying, if you look at it very carefully, usually, for example, if you take Bongo, on the average, the population is about 100,000 thereabout.
I see.
And if for a population of about 100,000, you are given the opportunity to serve them for 8 years at the National Assembly. That's a privilege.
Indeed.
And therefore, you should see these things and count them as part of your blessings. And God has a way of handling issues there. In fact, this is not the first time I've lost a primary.
Yes.
I lost it first in 2012. Yes, I did that.
That was the beginning days.
The beginning of my this. Yes, I know you know my political story. So, so it's not the first time I've lost. And in these current elections, it came that my colleague, who had also lost to me in other three previous occasions, ended up winning. So once again, I will say that I use this platform to congratulate him.
Indeed.
And then I know that the people of Bongo will look. Will handle him the way they handled me, and we'll see how it goes.
Indeed. But Honorable Joseph Baker, so is vote buying one of the things you don't want to talk about? But even if that's the case, the special prosecutor has decided to step into this phenomenon of vote buying.
Well,
Now, that's what we're seeing on the screen there. Delegates being given money. I think now it comes in the form of TNT and food.
TNT should not be more than 100 Ghana cedis.
So if you say TNT should not be more than 100 Ghana cedis, but we saw some 1,000 Ghana cedis, some 2,000 Ghana cedis.
Nothing else is bribe.
Right? And some of the amounts that we were hearing being given as TNT. It raises fundamental questions. And indeed, that's why the special prosecutor is getting into this. And these videos you are seeing from this is Lejikuku and some other areas as well. This is just one of many videos. There's a second one, which we will play for you. Also has the people taking the envelopes and actually writing their name. So this is what the OSP published. The faces of the six, or the pictures of the six, says this is the first set of people. It said the following persons are wanted by the special prosecutor for corruption and corruption-related offenses in respect of public elections, especially vote buying. This is the first three. Let's look at the second three. So this other set of three as well in there. Now, there are two questions that emerge here. And I'll start off with you, Joseph Penka, on this. Whether, first of all, how much of a task does the OSP has on its hands to address this matter of vote buying as a corruption and corruption-related offense? Is it going to be easy proving this?
I was privileged to speak to a number of media houses on this topic. And Alfred, let me state this. When I saw the pictures and I heard a statement, I read and heard a statement issued by the Office of Special Prosecutor on the matter, it was only a confirmation of all that we know all this while. But you see, Alfred, what is shocking is the level of impunity with which some of the things were carried out. You share it publicly. Cameras are capturing what is being done, distribution of money to influence voters, and etc. How have we come to this? I have stated time and again that everything is by evidence in this our country as it is in every other country. How is it that, for example, Alfred, you are living in maybe Accra, and then somebody offers you 1,000 cedis as TNT to go and vote in Accra? That certainly cannot be TNT. You know, unless you want to give another
the form
name
in which it comes.
This type of, I think this nomenclature is outright falsehood, and I don't want to debate it at all, because you cannot give a person within a constituency 1,000 Ghana cedis and you refer to that as transport money. But you see, I think that we've all along tickled ourselves and laughed. We pretended, buried our heads in the desert all this period, and pretended that nothing is happening, and it's eating deep into our fabric, the fabric of our democracy. And if care is not taken, I believe that, with all respect, criminals can take advantage and take this our country to ransom and buy our democracy and put us in all forms and shapes of trouble. Because if the owner of the fattest envelope wins, and somebody engages in robbery or engages in criminality and makes huge sums of money and comes to buy the electorate and represents it in parliament and projects and protects the interest of persons within his category, class, shape, and form, then we are in for trouble, and our nation is on its marks to self-destruction and complete annihilation. Because what I see is that if care is not taken, the very good people who have good intentions to serve our nation in capacity as members of parliament and in manners that they will distinguish themselves and help us to shape our democratic dispensation may never get the opportunity at all to serve, because they do not have the fat envelopes to deliver to persons to be able to influence them to cast votes in their favor. And it's happened, and I like to state this, across the political divide. It is not only New Patriotic Party or National Democratic Congress, across the political divide. And we've heard tapes, we've read even people making plans to buy, votes way ahead of time, and indeed they carry out this with impunity in manners that are so frightening. And you even ask, what are the sources of those huge sums of money? I've stated that, for example, if you look at the average earnings of an MP in 4 years, some of the amounts of money people use in influencing the electorate, if you multiply it by the number of delegates in the area, is less than the amount of money you earn as an MP in 4 years. So what is the motivation for this? That you spend so much money to just become candidate. You spend so much money to become a member of parliament, and in the end, even your salary in 4 years is not able to take care of. So how do you, make ends meet? And in the end, all that you spend, are you just a charitable organization, or you make efforts to recoup it? If you are recouping it, how? Is it going to be through fair means, or you cut corners? Because if you are going to do it through fair means, what you are earning legitimately cannot take care of what you spend in order to become a member of parliament.
In fact, that statement you've just made answers a question I was just about asking. Because if you're saying that based on the calculation, the salary of the MP is not even enough to make up for the amounts that we hear you people giving out to buy votes, then what is the motivation to really want to spend so much to stay in parliament where you are not earning so much, but then you can be able to gather so much money to spend to want to retain your seat in the place where they are not paying you so much? Why?
Alfred, I am unable to give a specific answer to that, because I have never attempted, and I do not ever attempt to influence electorate with such fat envelopes in order to go to parliament.
You didn't give anybody?
I want to state this on record, that 2 days to the elections, Martin, I went around all the polling stations and I gave each person 100 Ghana cedis as transport. And this is of public knowledge.
100 cedis?
100 Ghana cedis as transport to come and cast their votes. And my place, the majority of them use motorbikes. So it was for them to fuel their motorbikes and then come and cast their votes. I did not give anything beyond that. Wow. And this is for public records. And that is why my victory was shocking to many people.
That you didn't give money.
I didn't share money among people
but you
to
won.
Influence them to vote for me. They did it out of unconditional love, and my record as I served them as an MP for 4 years.
Wow.
I mean, I owe them a great debt of gratitude. That is all I can say on this national platform. I'm privileged to speak. But you see, I have told you that, Alfred, we have pretended over the years on this issue. Look, I have even heard, information that there are people who are preparing to buy votes by paying delegates 10,000 Ghana cedis each. How true it is, I don't know. But for all some of these rumors, there's some bit of truth. Even in some constituencies in the past, I heard, and indeed certain confirmations came in that people paid in USD, 1,000 USD and all that, to dole that out to delegates to vote for you to become a candidate. Now, if you have 500 delegates and you decide to give each of them, even if you take 300 people, you give them 10,000 Ghana cedis.
That's $1,000 maybe.
Just do the mathematics, and you see a frightening figure that will pop up. And then that is just for you're being nominated by your party as candidate. Then you again will have to go in and campaign and put in some resources. So if you do the average, you are going to get less than a quarter of that as earnings, legitimate earning as an MP when you get to parliament. So what then is the motivation to spend such huge sums of money? So again,
I'm going to ask you, what is the motivation?
Right from the beginning, we set up ourselves for corruption, so to speak, because if you get to parliament and you will have to recoup that which you spent, and your legitimate earning is less than a quarter of what you are supposed to earn legitimately, against the backdrop of what you spent in order to become MP, then in order for you to recoup it, you have to cut corners. You have to engage in dirty deals and etc. to be able to recoup your money. And that is the fact. We can pretend and say all sorts of things. Nobody is a Father Christmas. To say that you are putting in millions of Ghana cedis to become an MP in order to go for thousands of Ghana cedis in return as pay. Nobody is a Father Christmas. So there must be a reason and a motivation for it. I have seen the statement issued by the OSP asking for people to report those persons who were flaunting the money,
they didn't come with
and
names.
indicating. And remember that those people who did that, I mean, if they are going to be charged, the special prosecutor is not going to charge only the people who gave them the money, but they themselves are also going to be charged along. Because remember that in bribery, both the giver and the taker are guilty of an offense. So all that happened for me was dirty. Some of the areas, it was dirty and it was condemnable, and we ought to act swiftly and decisively to nip this ugly development in the bud. Because over the years we pretended, we've spoken about it, and anytime it comes up we speak, and after a week it is gone. No drastic actions are being taken. Is it not about time that we legislated specifically on this matter and criminalized it in specific terms, so that if it happens and there is any shred of evidence, we can go to court and seek for orders that are punitive enough to serve as deterrence? Because it appears that all that we do is to talk and allow it to die. Because look, Alfred, I have stated this. We've spoken in Ghana. We've unanimously said that we are not ready to accommodate LGBTQ and other such like. So if, for example, we as a nation, let's say we unanimously say that we're not ready to accommodate it, yes, it may be their rights, but we are not ready to legislate to protect any such rights in our jurisprudence for now. And then they decide that, look, they have money, let's sponsor a number of persons to go to parliament. And then people go bribe their way, buy the electorate and get there, and then they go to make laws that are unconscionable and against our cultural ethics and norms. Where are we going? It is something I think that as a nation, we pretended over the period. And I think it has gotten to a stage where action rather than words will solve it. We need decisive actions. The special prosecutor, as I stated, can come up with. But you see, the other thing that we have as a problem is how you are going to be able to garner the evidence enough to prove your case before court. Remember that if you run there empty-handed, you go home crying. You have to go with concrete evidence to nail people.
Right.
And if one or two persons are convicted in our jurisprudence, put behind bars, and it serves as some warning or signal that what is happening in our democracy can no longer continue and be tolerated, then I believe that we'll make a very big progress. Otherwise, what's going to happen is that I've seen in some constituencies persons who can represent their people and deliver And they just go and score either 0 or 2 or 3 because on ground of principle, they are not ready to pay any money.
So what form of evidence you're talking about? Because we see videos, and you're saying that it's not enough for the special prosecutor.
Yes, so what you have to do is, when you
do
get
anything,
the person, you have to be able to establish who gave that envelope. You have to establish that first.
So, for instance,
and
this
if you
envelope we are
establish it,
seeing,
you have to also prove intent. That what he was doing was with intent to influence the person to vote for him. All that has to be established in the course of evidence. Otherwise, you will not be able to prove your case before the court. Remember that everything in court is by evidence. And the evidence you garner will be either oral or documentary. And just by seeing this video, a movie, that you can go and hear a very strange explanation by the persons who are receiving the envelope as to the purpose of it. Again, whether it's conscionable or unconscionable will depend on the evidence that you garner and present to the court. And the court will be able to arrive at a decision that indeed the money was presented to the person to influence the person to vote in one way or the other. And then you can then come to a conclusion that it was meant to influence the person and therefore an offense has been committed. So it is one thing seeing the video and another thing appearing in court and presenting that as concrete evidence and proving your case. Remember that in criminal matters, as we all know, it is proved beyond a reasonable doubt. You know, it is not on the balance of probabilities as it is in civil matters. So you will have to, the burden will have to go to the state. We are not in a civil law country. You know, in places like Burkina and other areas, they catch you with a goat, they get to court, they tell you that you've been caught with a goat, prove that you are innocent. That is their system. And in our system, it's adversarial. We will have to prove your guilt. However concrete and strong the evidence against you is, we will have to mount the box and prove your guilt. It is not for you to prove your innocence. You know, except in exceptional cases where the burden of proof shifts.
Right. I see. Let me bring in Edward Bauer as well, and then at this point, let me welcome Professor Ransford Jampo. He's a professor of political science at the University of Ghana.
I haven't seen for a while.
Professor
Congratulations.
Ransford Jampo.
Thank you, bro.
Good morning and welcome.
Morning. I knew as for you wouldn't share money, but your work would speak for you.
Thank you.
So I was very happy when I was told that you have won. We need more people like you who speak for Ghana to be elected as members of parliament. Congratulations once again.
Thank you, my brother.
Great. Zedawa,
Yeah.
so on this issue of vote buying, I'm sure you have your own fair share of the story, but then again, clearly putting our democracy on the plate for the highest bidder to buy, that's what we've been doing over the period. Joseph Penka says there's a certain level of hypocrisy about this. We've been pretending to address the matter, and then we just shift our eyes off, it comes back again. Do you think that criminalizing this would be the way forward in addressing this danger that our democracy is faced with?
Thank you very much, Alfred. When Penka was speaking, I remember in the 7th Parliament, there was this MP from Ashanti region. I don't want to mention his name. Who walked to me he was actually a deputy minister who walked to me in the coffee shop so frustrated. And the reason was because he had just gotten a call from his constituency chairman, one of the Ashanti region MPs. Had gotten a call from his constituency chairman telling him that he needs to mobilize not less than 5 million for the primaries.
5 million Ghana
cedis. Because the person who was coming to contest him had planned giving a particular figure. And if he has to survive, he needs to get 5 million. And the man stood and said, "Inchi, the money jeopardy into 5 million." That which means all the property and other things here, it's not up to 5 million. Where was he going to get this? Long and short of the story, he lost the elections.
He lost it.
He lost the elections. And a different person came to parliament. It clearly tells you that, first and foremost, people do not even know that the issue of vote buying is a crime. They don't understand the concept. They don't understand that if I demand X before I offer my vote, it's a crime. Those who even have some level of knowledge about it seem to think that it's an entitlement. They think that, oh, after all, what is it? I'm giving you employment.
Yes.
And because I'm giving you employment, you should do something.
And you normally will hear that this is their cocoa season.
Cocoa season and other
because
things.
they know that when you go into parliament, they are not going to see you
They are
often.
going to see you. They are not going to do that.
They will take what they deserve. So that when
that also happens. And let's be very frank with ourselves. It's not only within, for example, parliamentary primaries, presidential primaries. These things are done. Even sometimes branch elections, the unit
committee.
no, I'm just talking the basic unit of the electoral processes for us in terms of as political parties.
Right.
So branch elections, these things are done. You are seated down and somebody calls you and tells you that, look, I'm contesting for branch chairman. But from all indications, if I don't have this amount of money, the people won't even vote for me on that day. So from that level, up to constituency, up to region, up to national, parliamentary primaries, presidential primaries, you have these. You recall that just even before this, I'm surprised that the OSP is rather concentrating on this one. You know, before this, you recall that there were gentlemen in Ashanti region, for example, who stood during the presidential primaries of the NPP, stood and said that they were waiting for Kennedy Japan to bring his money or else they won't go and vote. You recall? So it gives you a fair idea that they don't understand the concept. Because nobody will come and stand on national television and say that I'm waiting to go and steal or I have stolen. I don't know where you're getting the money. Because they understand the concept. So that's the first point. Secondly, I think that we also pretend in some of our political party financing, the laws, as to whether we even implement them. I'll give you a typical example. You take, for example, in a country like the United States, where it is legal to be registered and be seen as a lobbyist. And so, if I'm a registered lobbyist, I can go there and then lobby lawmakers to take a particular position. And everything is done transparently. There are people, senators or maybe congressmen and women, who, because they want, for example, a particular project in their area, in their district, they will trade that for a vote, and it's legal. However, in Ghana, we pretend that is corruption. And because we pretend that is corruption, we sit down, and then, for example, a member of parliament is seated down, and there's a serious issue. There's a way that the person has to vote. And then people then begin to have influence, like what do you call it? Suspicion. I'll give you just one example, just the budget that we just passed. What's the name?
The
not the budget. We didn't pass the budget.
Well, the policy, the policy document.
Principle, the principles and what do you call it? Underlining the budget that was voted for. You recall that before that day, there were situations where you had some media persons and other things on Facebook and other things indicating that, oh, there was this amount of money they were going to use in bribing some 5 MPs, and you know something, and therefore, and the basis of that, the people will not come, some will travel out of the country and other things. The question is because we do not really find a way of treating it honestly. That, look, how do we make sure that we regulate these behaviors? It is when we know how to regulate these behaviors, then all these suspicions do not come. Because in other jurisdictions, again, people will then judge you based on your voting pattern.
As an MP.
As an MP. Here, it is not done. Nobody knows how e-levy, maybe somebody voted. Nobody knows when it came to the issue of speaker, they voted. Apart from just throwing suspicions and other things all over the place. So, I think that basically that is where the thing is. Now to the OSP. You see, I agree that these unfortunate people who have been caught on television, live television, I agree that what they did was a crime. I agree that the OSP must be seen to be, even if at the end of the day, these people do not end up being convicted, at least there would have been some signal as part of the public education that there's a consequence for a behavior like this. And that this is a crime. Because just as I said earlier on, that people simply do not even know that vote buying is a crime. Now, the danger is for our democracy, and I'll say this. my own experience, you had a situation where you had money bags coming over, and the issue was that they wanted...
Say money bags, what do you mean? Like money in bags?
No, so when I say, it's basically people who had deep pockets. You understand?
I see. Okay.
So they come, and then the basis of the fact that they want to know that if Martin is going to be the candidate, I want to have influence over Martin. So if I want to have influence over Martin, I'll finance Martin. I get the point. Now, this person who finally comes and then he says that, look, I want to finance you. One day, maybe this person may even be a very legitimate person with a legitimate source of funding. You may have one day where all our political structures, whether it's at the legislature, whether it's at the president, the executive, will all be controlled by criminals.
Criminals.
Criminals. Because you have a situation where, for example, assuming I'm a drug dealer, and I want to ensure that when you go to court, when you go to parliament, you should be the law should be made in such a way that all will be well for us in our business. It doesn't cost much for a drug dealer in terms of the amount of money they get if they are successful in pushing one to come and mess up a whole constituency.
In fact, there's a CDD survey that revealed, and I'm sure maybe Professor Jampo and Matikbebo, some time ago I shared this detail with you, where they actually found out that Galamsey operators, some nefarious businessmen, have been financing political party activities over the period, Galamsey operators and the likes. So it's evident in the what is going on. Even though we say we are tackling this menace, there's no real impact in these areas where this Galamsey is going on.
Just to give you yet another example, a member of parliament, he survived. He survived. In his area, because you use the word Galamsey, he stood up, and he's an MPP man. He stood up against the these Galamseyers or whatever you call them. They were venturing into a forest that was a reserved area. It was out of bounds for mining. He stood against that. Do you know what happened? And this was in the 7th Parliament. All the Galamsey guys, they ganged up and got a candidate. Candidate to contest him.
The Galamsey operator.
Yes, and this man was my chairman of the committee that I served in. That was the 7th Parliament. This guy he couldn't even concentrate anytime he was chairing even the committee meeting because he was so worried about that. Currently, as we speak, and I say this with all the strength, and I'm going to say this here because I'm going to mention names. Yesterday, on live, I was hearing it, but I didn't know it was true. On one of your sister media houses, they were talking. The current sitting controller, accountant general, or what do you call it? Controller accountant general is vying to contest one of the seats in Central Region. A certain person who controls all of us our money. The guy he is trying to contest. Look, all that you hear them say is that every delegate has been put on salary, and he's been doing that for about 2 years. You have evidence? I'm just telling you the basis of what they call it.
That's what you heard.
What I heard. So yesterday, and I was also worried. Yesterday, you had a situation where people were not texting and saying, incoming MP on radio. On radio, they were tapping and mentioning his name. And I say that, look, if you have a situation where you control my money, state money, there must be laws as to how you deal with some of these things. There must be laws as to how you deal with some of these things. Everybody is seeing it. Everybody is hearing it. But nobody is questioning it. And the thing has now moved from just being talked on, corridors, to radio stations. And the OSP is not even interested in trying to investigate this. So the point I'm just trying to make is that, yes, these guys may be very unfortunate guys. They are there, they were caught because they were desperate. They thought that this was the time for them to also harvest. They think that after this, they have no say in the political discourse, and so they will do that. So what about the big fishes? How do we deal with those ones?
You mean the people who are giving the money?
People who are doing this. And sometimes the state has an opportunity to be able to fight it. And they are not.
How?
Because in the first place, if I am an appointee, I am the one who appoints an officer. Why on earth will it be the case that, for example, you are a chief executive of a public institution, then suddenly, without resigning, you move in to go and contest a seat? State institution, you move in to go and contest a seat. How do you do that? How do you do that? And so until we address this, and it's not only for what they call it, the NPP or the NDC. Look, there have been history of within the NDC, whilst people were chief executives, they went and contested. There's history currently. He was contested by a deputy CEO
Of National Youth.
Yes, he was contested by a deputy CEO.
This?
YEA. He was contested by a deputy CEO.
Yes.
So you have situations like that. And until we are bold enough to tell ourselves that, look, we must deal with these things head on. These ones are just the unfortunate fishes. They are the loose ends of what they call it, the food chain. The bigger fishes are up there. And until we confront those issues, please, let's forget this issue about talking about vote buying.
I see. So, Lawyer Matubebe, I'll bring you at this point, and because you're talking about...
But before Martin
yes,
comes in,
Prof,
I just want
a quick one.
just say that, see, the MPP in government now, and then also future government that takes over, I think they made a very good intervention or rule that said that if you are a sitting MCE, you cannot qualify to contest as an MP.
Yes.
I think nationally we can have some of these rules that say that
is for where
it's a thought.
the MP is.
So that is even for where the
That's what I'm saying.
MP is.
Yeah. So I think nationally, if we mean well, we can come out with some of these fine blueprints and agreements that if you are a controller and accountant general, you control all the resources and then you want to contest. I mean, we should have some of these rules that say that, for people like that, then you should resign. You should have resigned long ago to be able to do that. Otherwise, then it appears that we are not serious as a nation.
And we'll check that the controller bit that you mentioned. We're checking that for you. And before you come in, I wanted to play a video for you, and that gives also another perspective to some of the things we've been talking about.